Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
February 11, 2021, the Stop Whining edition. And we begin with that story from the Financial Times. The boss of KPMG in the United Kingdom has temporarily stepped down for, quote, alleged comments, end quote, he made during an online meeting. He told staff that they should, quote, stop moaning, end quote, about the pandemic and its effects on people. This came in apparently a meeting with clients for coffee in spite of lockdown rules. He also dismissed unconscious bias as, quote, complete crap, end quote. Now, I'd like you to think about those things from the compliance perspective. You got the CEO of KPMG telling employees, don't worry about the pandemic. In fact, stop moaning about it, and then goes on to opine that racial bias doesn't exist and unconscious bias doesn't exist. As one KPMG employee said on an internal Twitter-like chat, are you joking? Please do your research before making such statements. Check your privilege. For every minority employee of KPMG UK, that's obviously a slap in the face. Talk about brain dead, insensitivity, tone deafness. KPMG takes the weekly award for that. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. government has halted plans to force the sale of TikTok America's Group to Oracle and Walmart. People familiar with the situation say. The deal, which was, of course, driven by former President Trump, has languished since last fall in the midst of legal challenges by TikTok's owner. In the latest development, the Biden administration asked to delay the government's appeal of the federal court's injunction to study the issue further. So yet another idiot move by the Trump administration that hopefully will end. Also from the Wall Street Journal, Dylan Tokar reporting in the Risk and Compliance Journal, financial institutions want more clarity on the new anti-money laundering changes. Compliance professionals hope that the government will provide more input on its expectations following the enactment of the new AML law of 2020. This would come from regulatory writing of rules and regs from FinCEN and perhaps others in the government. So interesting to see financial institutions wanting more regulatory interpretation before they begin to implement their new requirements under this law. And our final story is the continuing story of GameStop. The stock continues to drop. It dropped nearly 20% on Tuesday, down to under $50 a share, but it's still well above what it was when the insanity around it and the market started really going crazy the last couple of weeks of January. But for anybody who's ever been in one of these or seen a bubble, you know they always go down, so there's nothing real surprise here. What's going to be interesting to see is how many people who bought at $350 or put in options and had to cover those options, what that's going to mean for their market experience going forward. So once again, proving that whatever goes up must go down in the stock market, at least in my experience. GameStop is moving down to closer monetary value to probably its true value, and showing once again that if you get it at the top of the bubble, it's going to blow up on you. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.